to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson. Perfect timing and always an honor and a delight to have with us Mark Meckler. When he has time, we grab it, and he is president of the Convention of States, an outstanding organization doing great work. In fact, that is also his website, conventionofstates.com. There's a picture of the landing page, and you can go there and learn a lot about what his work is doing, and he is making great progress. Order up the little booklet as well, and stay informed. Conventionofstates.com. Brother Mark, good to see you, friend. How are you, bud?
Good morning. Great to be with you, Perry.
Thanks for your time. All right, so you're in Texas. How in the world are you handling the drama?
I think we've grown used to it here in Texas, and I would say a lot of it's fake drama. Like, we knew when these Democrats ran away, like the cowards that they are, that they would come back. Ultimately, it was going to happen. So there's a lot of theatrics that take place in between here and there, and ultimately they came back and they lose the votes because Texas is a red state.
Okay, so were they punished in any way? I mean, were they? It seems like they really create a lot of havoc. Did they go past the statutes of limitations and all that?
Yeah, I think the frustrating thing for a lot of conservative folks here in Texas, myself among them, is no, they weren't punished. Nothing really happened to them. Nothing will happen to them. For a long time now, we've had pretty feckless leadership in our House of Representatives. I think that leadership continues, and it is beholden to Democrats. Dustin Burrows, who is the Speaker of the House here in Texas, is elected by the Democrats, voting with a minority of Republicans. So I don't expect to see any consequences for the Democrats, and we're going to have to change that in our House if we want real reform.
Are they trying any legal action?
Yeah, I don't think there's any legal action that's going to take place. I mean, I think really this has been all a big hullabaloo about nothing. The redistricting will take place, though I have to say I think it's somewhat watered down now. It's not as good as it was going to be before the Democrats left. And again, I think that's on the Speaker and the leadership in the House. I think it's failed leadership here in the state of Texas.
So why have they acquiesced when they got the votes?
Well, the reason is we have this unique situation here, Perry, and I think people consider Texas a red state, and by vote it is. But every session, every 2 years, our House of Representatives elects a speaker who is beholden to the Democrats. And the way that they do this is that you get some of the weakest, worst Republicans get together. They find a Republican who's willing to go cut a deal with the Democrats. They get all the Democrat votes, and then they'll get, roughly 18 to 20 Republican votes who will vote with that Democrat bloc and elect a speaker who will give the Democrats a lot of what they want, often giving them chairmanships of committees. He promised he wouldn't do that this time, so instead he created subcommittees where bills were able to be killed. We have our State Affairs Committee where a lot of our most important bills come through, and that was chaired by a representative by the name of Ken King, who's part of this faction. 50 of the Republican priorities died in that State Affairs Committee. So it's a pretty sad state of circumstances here in our House of Representatives.
In the meantime, Governor Newsom stuck his nose in this and wants to retaliate by redistricting California, which is, I mean, the entertainment doesn't get any better on some of this stuff. What do you think about that?
Well, as you know, I came from California, moved to Texas 8 years ago. California has already been heavily redistricted. They have a quote unquote nonpartisan redistricting commission, which is anything but nonpartisan. They're supposed to redistrict according to a schedule and according to rules. And even the director of that quote unquote nonpartisan redistricting commission came out and said, well, we're going to have to blow all of this off, all the rules we put in place and everything. And we're going to have to go to the voters and try to get the authority to redistrict prior to the time we're supposed to do it. I think they'll probably pull that off and they'll redistrict. And I think they're going to get a few more seats out of it, pushing Republicans even further out of the political mainstream in California.
Okay, the hypocrisy of this just really reeks because, gerrymandering, redistricting, reapportionment, I mean, that's been going on for years. I mean, if you look at Oregon, it looks like a worm got loose across our state.
So, Perry, it's important we remember where the term gerrymandering even comes from. And it comes from literally the founding of the country. Eldridge Gerry is the one who invented this idea. And he goes back to the Constitutional Convention itself, all the way back to the founding of the country. So we've been doing this for a long time. It's not surprising. Unfortunately, it's just gotten worse and worse over the years. And now the states are getting to the point of what I would describe almost as a stasis, where virtually no seats are competitive. I think that's where we're going to end up in this country, and it just furthers the division between red and blue in America.
So is this an issue that you take under consideration with the Convention of States?
No, it's really not, because this is not about limiting federal power. This is something that the states have the power to do. And we're big believers in state power. And so if states want to do this, more power to them. But what we're going to see, and what we are seeing because of this, is not just more partisan divide, but a population realignment. We see people like me moving from California to Texas, and I'm not alone. There are hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of us that have made that move. We see people leaving states like Illinois and New Jersey and New York and going to Florida and Tennessee and Texas. I think we're going to see more and more of this. We're going to see the states themselves become more partisan.
So, just so you know, in the state of Oregon, I mean, we're about as blue as you get, California, Oregon, and Washington.
Right.
The migration has been so great from Oregon to Idaho to Texas to Nevada and to Arizona that we are now losing a congressional seat.
Yeah, and so again, I think this is where the balance comes in, and this is the brilliance of the framers. They're going to drive people who are conservatives out of those states. They're going to drive the population down. Those policies are not only unpopular, they're economically unfeasible. And so people are forced to move, and they're forced to leave, and they're going for greener pastures and places where they have more freedom and they can keep more of their hard earned money. And that's going to increase representation in Congress. There's a related subject right now, which is the fight over the census and the desire to redo the census. The census was wrong. The Census Bureau admits it. And there's probably another 7 to 11 seats that would come out of redoing the census that would go red in the next election.
Wow. One other little note. How does it feel in Texas now with a secure border?
It's radically different. I mean, when I say radically different, it's night and day. If you go, for example, down to the border, if you go to towns like McAllen or El Paso, the downtown areas are much safer. You don't see all the illegal immigrants all over the streets, congregating on street corners and at gas stations. My friends who live in those places say that they feel much safer. You see actually less law enforcement presence on the streets because they don't need it with so many less illegal immigrants on the streets. Some of the detention centers have been closed, the temporary detention centers. It's absolutely incredible. It is night and day.
Ah, amazing. All right, let's swing to some bigger issues here. Not that Texas isn't big. And your dog sitting behind you. Okay, so it's been a pretty historic week. Putin, Trump, and then it ends up on his way home. He calls all these European leaders to show up at the White House on Monday. This is pretty historic. What's your 30,000-foot view?
It's one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. I mean, this is a president who is very strong on peace, on ending wars, and bringing the death and carnage to an end point, which is what needs to be done. Joe Biden was weak and feckless in this arena, and frankly, Republican presidents in the past have been. I think one of the most interesting things is to see he has this meeting with Putin, and within 48 hours, he summoned all the major leaders from Europe. They're sitting in front of his desk. And I look at it, it's almost like the school children have been called into the principal's office and told what they will do.
Mm-hmm.
And what you hear at the end of that meeting is the European leaders standing up and saying, President Trump's a great leader, and he's working hard to bring an end to this war, and we're all in with him. And the incongruence with what our mainstream media says is incredible. They say that somehow Trump is a cat's paw for Putin and giving in to Putin. Nobody else believes that except for the mainstream media in America.
So in the meantime, do you think this move really does box Putin in? Because Putin has outlived quite a few administrations, but no other administration has brought the other European leaders to the table and said, look, if I'm gone, you guys are still there as countries, and you need to protect Ukraine. I mean, that's a huge message, don't you think?
Yeah, I think it's a huge message, but I don't want to be overly optimistic. Putin is a very difficult character. He's very steadfast in his desire to return the Soviet Union to the world stage as a world power. He considers Ukraine just simply to be part of Russia, and he expects that he's going to eat the whole thing eventually. And I think he's willing to take it piece by piece. The economic reality is that Russia is not actually suffering right now economically in a wartime status. Their economy is churning. They have a great oil and gas deals with China, and they had that with Iran. And so I'm not certain they're hurting bad enough to come back to the table. The real question in my mind is what will Trump do if Putin thumbs his nose, which is actually what I expect. And the question is, how heavily will NATO and will the US arm up Ukraine? Is it enough to impose real pain on Moscow so they're forced into the war?
Okay, I get that, and that's yet to be seen. But I am a little surprised that the president hasn't put more pressure on China. China's kind of like the silent agent here in behalf of Putin. You kind of wonder, why don't we just squeeze China really hard?
Yeah, I think the reason is I don't think we're prepared to do it. And I don't mean that emotionally. I actually think the president got out a little over his skis when he imposed 135, 140% tariffs on China. The problem is that we as an economy rely too heavily on China right now. The American public has not been well prepared for what it would take to wean ourselves off of China. One of the biggest things we know is that in rare earth metals, China leads the way. They control about 90% of the world's production. Those metals are required in the batteries and all the things we use, like cell phones and computers and EVs, cars, all of this stuff. China controls the entire production stream. So what we're starting to see is Trump has backed off, but he's also doing the wise thing at this point, in my opinion, which he's going and securing rare earth metals deals around the world, in Australia, hopefully in Ukraine. He's freeing up some of that in the US and the mountain states in Montana and Wyoming. So I think there are precursors to really clamping down on China. And I think he understands that reality. He's putting those precursors in place.
How much is the rare earth mineral deal a positive for Ukraine?
Well, I think it's an incredible. I mean, this is where Trump is so unique. I think it's incredible for Ukraine and the U.S. in multiple ways. Number one, it's a financial boon for Ukraine. You're going to see hundreds of millions of dollars in investment, maybe ultimately billions of dollars of U.S. investment there. But it also gives them a security guarantee. If the U.S. has billions of dollars invested in Ukraine in rare earth metals extraction and processing, what that means is we have economic interests that we need to defend in Ukraine, and those become geopolitical interests because of the strategic importance of these rare earth metals. So I think it's a win-win for both Ukraine and the United States.
So it appears that the president's saying, we want to give you Article 5 protection without joining NATO. What do you think about that? And does that also result in Ukraine joining the EU?
Yeah, so I just want to clarify for folks, Article 5 is the reciprocal protection agreement in the NATO articles. And basically what it says is if one of the NATO countries is attacked by a hostile country, then all the countries will come to their defense. And I think one of the reasons we got into the situation with Ukraine is I think Joe Biden very recklessly essentially offered up NATO membership to Ukraine. And that put Putin in a position where he was going to have a NATO member on his border. He doesn't like that. I understand why he doesn't like that. I'm not a fan of Putin. I don't agree with him, but it was a pretty hostile maneuver. And I do think it's better that they don't join NATO, that we agree that they don't join NATO, but we do provide security guarantees. And that's what it looks like is going to happen. I think that is the right path. As far as EU membership, it appears that that's going to happen at some point. Ukraine has been moving more and more obviously into the Western orbit and out of the Eastern orbit, and that would be a completion of that maneuver.
The president said no boots on the ground, but he did not say we wouldn't get involved maybe with air protection and other things. Is that how you read that?
Yeah, I would say probably. I would read it even more broadly. I think when he says no boots on the ground, he probably means our aircraft in the air either. I think where he's not drawing any limitations is the amount of armaments that we would provide to Ukraine and whether or not those armaments would be beyond defensive. They would go to offensive capabilities to strike Moscow, to strike other cities, to strike the port cities of Russia, and to really put Russia on defense. I think my personal opinion is, practically speaking, that's the only way to push Russia back is to make them feel the pain inside of Russia. And I think that's probably where we're headed to get a peace agreement.
Okay, one last question. So at the end of the day, it looks like land is part of the deal, and land that they've already conquered, which is Crimea and some other areas. But it also looks like they may end up with less land than what they started with. Is that true?
I mean, Ukraine might end up with less.
Yeah.
Land than,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is true. And look, one of the things that I admire about Trump is that he's a political realist and he looks at the facts on the ground and tries to figure out what can he do based on those. It's not philosophical for Trump. He wants to end the war. He wants to end the killing. And I think that's humane, but he also understands that Russia has taken territory. And without expanding the war, without killing a lot more people, they're not going to give that territory back. To be fair, also, it's important to know that Donbass, which is probably the region most likely to end up in Russian hands, there's a huge Russian ethnic contingent that live in Donbass would actually prefer to be part of Russia. I think it's about 60% of the population. And so I think that makes the most sense. It's hard to imagine them giving those military gains back. I think actually Putin would be in trouble in Russia if he didn't gain anything from this conflict.
Okay. All right, let me take a quick break. Check out Mark's website, conventionofstates.com, and there's a picture of the landing page. Order up that little booklet. In fact, he'll send them out to you. They're a great resource to spread around and learn more about the Convention of States. What are you up to, 30-something states now?
I wish we were at 30-something. We're at 19 states.
Oh, 19, I'm sorry.
34 necessary, so 15 to go.
Okay, well, I'm pulling for you, man. I'm pulling for you.
I like it.
All right, we'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. An honor to have back with us Mark Meckler. Mark is president of Convention of States and one of the great guys out there doing a hard job and one of our, what I call, frontline warriors. Check out his conventionofstates.com website. There's a picture of the landing page, and they have these little booklets on the Convention of States to help you become more educated, and you share that with a lot of people, and he'll send them out to you, conventionofstates.com. Mark, earlier we had a little bit on our news. I want to play this for you and have your comment. This is National Security Tulsi Gabbard talking about, well, a couple of things. You know, yesterday she fired 37 moles inside the agency. I guess that's the best way you can call them. You know, these were Democratic holdouts. She fired all 37 of them and pulled out their security clearance, and explains the problem and where it goes from here. And so I want to play this for you and get your comment.
The integrity of our democratic republic depends on the American people knowing the truth about what actually happened and seeking that accountability, bringing about that accountability. I don't know how else to characterize what happens when there is a sitting president of the United States, there is a director of the CIA, a director of national intelligence under President Obama, the head of the NSA, James Comey is the head of the FBI, all coming together, and this is documented in what we released, all coming together to create this lie with the intent of delegitimizing the duly elected president of the United States because the person they wanted to win actually lost. And the American people made their own choice in spite of everything that happened in that 2016 election, and they chose Donald Trump. This was not a one-off thing. This wasn't just, oh, well, they fudged the lines a little bit. They created a lie and propagated that lie in order to try to undermine the person that the American people chose to be our president and commander-in-chief. The integrity of our democratic republic.
Okay, so look, I guess the question I have here is, what happens? Does anything happen with this?
Well, I do think this is actually a big move. So starting to clean out the people that are inside the agencies that don't actually believe in our constitutional republic, that believe that they're above the law, above the electeds, above the American public. It can't be overstated what a big deal this is. I've never seen this happen before. Administrations come and go, and the security state remains above the law. So for Tulsi Gabbard to be doing this, it's incredibly risky to her personally, certainly her political career, but I worry about her physical safety as well. So I think it's incredible that she's done this. 37 is a good start. These are people that were involved in creating these lies and covering up these lies and spreading these lies in the media. They've had their security clearances revoked. Many of them had actual contracts with the security state. Those contracts have been revoked. So I think it's a great start, and I imagine that she's going to continue to clean house. I think this is going to have a decades-long impact.
Okay, but back to the core case here of what took place, and I realize you're dealing with statutes of limitations and immunities. an entanglement unlike anything we've ever seen. But that shouldn't be an excuse not to pursue justice at some level or exposure to where they're just basically ruined as individuals. Do you think that'll happen?
Yeah, I do think some of that's going to happen. I would say in my entire life in politics, which now goes back 15 years, I've not seen any actual justice take place for people like this. But I do think this is different. There is a reason that it's different. There is a theory that's been developed by the DOJ called the Grand Conspiracy Theory. And basically, what it says is that there is a 10-year conspiracy that's taken place starting before Donald Trump was elected president and continuing through the present day, and that all of these crimes can be tied into that 10-year conspiracy, which is still continuing today. And so that means the statute of limitations on much of this stuff has not run yet. It has not even been told yet because the conspiracy is ongoing. So if that theory holds, and I believe it's a sound legal theory, then prosecutions will be available in a lot of these cases, and I believe they're going to be brought.
But that doesn't preempt an immunity, does it?
Well, the immunity, what we're talking about, generally speaking, is Barack Obama. And I do think that Barack Obama and or Joe Biden are widely going to be immune from any kind of charges or prosecution under these statutes. Presidential immunity is quite broad, and it was deemed to be so in the last Supreme Court term in regard to President Trump. And I think that is going to cover Biden and Obama. But I think from there on down, there's a lot of exposure.
Okay. Pretty interesting, because wouldn't immunities, especially the last, hours of immunity tossed out by the auto pen, isn't that an admission?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be used, but not necessarily against the presidents. But look, the auto pen is a whole different issue that is going to be litigated, which is how much authority did people have to sign on Joe Biden's behalf with an auto pen? And I think it's murky. I don't think there's a lot of proof on the table yet, but I think the investigation is being done on that. And that calls a whole bunch of things into question. If he signed legislation with that auto pen that he didn't know he was signing, if he signed executive orders, if he signed pardons, I believe that he didn't know about the pardons he was signing. The question becomes, are those pardons valid? That's really important in context of these investigations, because some of these people that were peremptorily pardoned, the people, for example, who ran the J6 investigatory committee, if those pardons are deemed not valid by a court of law, then all those people have exposure. And I hope that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I do too. I will see what happens on that one. All right, one last question, and thanks for your time again, Mark. Always appreciate you. What do you think of the crackdown of the crime in D.C.?
I think it's incredible. I've spent a lot of time in D.C. I watched D.C. deteriorate before my eyes. I wouldn't walk on the streets of D.C. after 8 p.m. now. It's just dangerous out there. It used to be dangerous in the dangerous areas, and now it's dangerous everywhere. Every major city in the country has some dangerous areas, but it was everywhere in Washington, D.C. We've seen the murder rates, rape, theft, robbery, burglary skyrocket, vandalism, car theft. And overnight, it appears that Trump has fixed all this. And the left would have us believe these are societal ills. There's no easy fix. We have to spend more money. No, there's an easy fix. You put more law enforcement on the street, you arrest people, you prosecute people. It's working. I want to say in conclusion, though, it's not enough. I think home rule should be abolished entirely. I think the D.C. City Council is an abomination. The D.C. mayor is an abomination. They should be removed. Congress should control that city. We should fix the school districts there. They're some of the worst in the country. Washington, D.C. should be a shining city on the hill. It should be the best city in America. And we should be proud of that city every single day. And I think Donald Trump and Congress can do that if they have the will.
Do you think he'll get his 30-day extension? I mean, right now he's allowed to do this for 30 days. Do you think the citizenry and the leadership in D.C. step up and say, continue?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be up to Congress whether he gets that extension. I think they're going to grant it to him. Everything I've heard is that the people on the streets of D.C. are really happy about it. The people who are subject to crime are happy about it. The only people protesting it are rich white people who live in protected areas where they don't have to deal with these problems. So I think he's going to get that extension, and I think he's going to continue cleaning up the city.
How does the Democrats stay alive defending not doing this?
I think it's going to hurt them politically. I mean, there will always be people who vote Democrat no matter what. But when you watch the videos, from the folks live on the streets in Washington, D.C., the shop owners, the people who have to live in these rough areas, these crime-ridden areas. They're very happy with Donald Trump and the Republicans right now.
Yeah. Mark, good to see you, buddy. You doing okay?
Great to see you too. Everything's great here.
Well, let's see. You got a safe border. You're going to win in redistricting. You're going to put.
I got the dogs here in the office.
You got a dog. You got a saddle. Hey, you got it all, man. Thanks, Mark. God bless you, pal. Good to see you.
God bless you too, Perry. Thanks.